What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel, and today we're going to be talking about some of the improvements that I think need to be made to Battlefield 2042 now that it has been out for around a week or so and we've gotten to know most of the ins and outs. There are quite a few things on this list. I think I have like 9 or 10 things to mention all up, and there are probably a lot of other issues too, but luckily for me I've actually had a really great experience so far with hardly any hiccups at all. So just keep in mind that I can only really talk about my own experience. If you guys are experiencing a worse time than me, then obviously you might have like 20 things instead of 10, but yeah, I can only really mention the things that I've noticed myself. It's also worth keeping in mind that this is probably a rather negative video at the end of the day. I'm going to literally just be sitting here and complaining about 10 different things, but my experience with the game so far has been absolutely amazing. I'm absolutely loving the game right now, and so this isn't meant to be me having a sulk or anything like that. I'm actually just making this video mostly so that I can send it through to the devs and give them some solid feedback on things that I think need improving. Before we get into it, if you guys are new to the channel, then consider subscribing and turning on those notifications. But with that being said, let's get stuck right into it. So for me personally, the thing that I noticed first when I loaded up the game was that there is actually no server browser, at least in All Out Warfare anyway. Obviously Portal has it and that's great, and Hazard Zone doesn't really need a server browser due to the nature of the game, but for All Out Warfare I think it is a really big mistake for them to not include a server browser. It's something that has been a staple of Battlefield games for so long now, to have the ability to, surf through a list of servers, set up some filters to remove certain maps, or just fine tune your search to exactly what you want to play, and to not have that in this game just feels a little bit weird to me personally. Now the main reason that I'm actually really against them not having one is because there's always the chance that skill-based matchmaking, or SBMM, can sneak into the game. We've seen from Call of Duty that despite the core sort of veteran player base absolutely hating SBMM, probably 98% of the player base doesn't even know it exists, and according to Activision it really helps with the player retention, since the lesser skilled players don't get destroyed as often by the good players, meaning they enjoy their time even more. As much as I absolutely despise skill-based matchmaking, I do understand that it helps with Call of Duty, but Battlefield is not Call of Duty. There are 128 players in a match, there are vehicles, it's overall just meant to be that true sandbox experience that they keep talking it up to be, and so if skill-based matchmaking were to be in this game, then that is a huge bummer to me, and because of no server browser, there is a possibility that it could find its way into All Out Warfare without us ever knowing. Overall, I just think a server browser is something that's been around forever, and it clearly never had any negative impacts on the game, so for them to remove it just seems a little bit odd to me, and I think they really do need to add it back into the base game. Now moving on, we have the lack of a scoreboard, at least in the typical sense, and the fact that I think they really need to add the regular scoreboard back into the game. I'm not sure why they made the decision to do that, to be honest. I'm completely guessing here, but my assumption is because of the way the world is going right now, where everyone gets a participation medal, and I feel like they've removed the regular scoreboard so that those less experienced players don't get sort of disheartened when they see themselves down the bottom of the scoreboard. That is just a complete guess, so please take that with a grain of salt, but yeah, if that is the case, then I think that's just not the right way to go about things, in all honesty, and with the scoreboard the way that it is, I just find it to be really jarring and kind of pointless other than to check my own stats. It's not the end of the world really. I don't think stats per game matter all that much at the end of the day, but I think having the option to see the regular scoreboard would just be a nice touch, and so again, I really do hope they add that back into the game at one point or another. Moving on, we have something that is a little bit more specific, and that is the balancing on a breakthrough. I've experienced it myself, and from what everyone else is telling me as well, it seems that it is borderline impossible to win a game as the attacking team in breakthrough, so I think some balancing needs to be done in that regard. I've played quite a few games of breakthrough so far, and I think I've gotten past the first phase maybe twice in all of those games as attacker, and then I'm actually yet to get past the second phase ever. Like, it just feels completely impossible to do for whatever reason, and although the mode is fun, it will get boring really quickly if you just can't possibly win games as the attacking team. I think maybe giving the attacking team more tickets, or making the respawn timer longer for the defending team or something, just some smaller changes like that would do a world of good. It doesn't need to go too far, otherwise obviously it'll just be imbalanced on the other side obviously, so yeah, hopefully they can just tweak it a tiny bit in order to make it a little bit more balanced for the attacking team. Moving on, we have another missing feature as of right now, and that is the ability to change squads when you're in a match. You are able to see the list of squads and the players, but at least as far as I know, there's no way to actually change your squad, and for multiple reasons that needs to be changed. I am predominantly a solo Battlefield player, and there's plenty of times when I get put in a squad with like 3 plebs who are just sitting at the back of the map doing absolutely fuck all to help the team, and when they're my only viable spawn points, it means that I have to either get a vehicle or run all the way back to the action. In previous games when that happened, I would always just change to another squad that had a spare slot, and usually when you change squad, those players will be playing the game properly and sort of helping the team, and bam, problem solved. I now have proper spawn points as well as teammates that I can actually help out with some ammo or health, and yeah, it just results in a much better experience as a predominantly solo player. This one probably seems a little bit insignificant, but to me this is probably one of the biggest changes that I really think they need to look into as soon as possible. Now moving on, we have the HUD and the UI, and while I do really enjoy the HUD overall in terms of like the static HUD on your screen, like the minimap and all that kind of thing, the flag markers are really dominant on your screen, and quite often I'll actually die from a gunfight where I couldn't see the enemy because there's a big C1 on my screen completely covering them. Usually in previous games it would either 1, fade away and become invisible when you're ADSing in that direction, or 2, it would even have the ability to reduce the opacity in the settings, and as of right now neither of those options are available. The HUD settings in general are actually fairly bare bones in my opinion. As far as I can tell, there is no HUD scaling, no opacity settings or anything similar to those, and it just feels like you don't really have all that much control over your HUD, which is a pretty crucial thing to be in the game. Your HUD is essentially always visible and it's crucial to your awareness in game, and not having control over how it looks, how big it is, or how certain elements act, that is a big no-no for me personally. I think the HUD overall is really good, so it's not like I want them to change it all. I just think that there needs to be a little bit more control in terms of how it works for each player. Next up, this one is pretty simple, but I would love to see a stats page added to the game again, similar to Battlefield 5. Now, like I said earlier, I know that stats aren't everything and they can often promote toxicity in the community. I've actually seen some of the better players being absolute flogs on Twitter, literally not engaging with people in a discussion about the game because they will literally ask before talking to someone, please tell me your KD before this conversation goes any further. So I get that stats can turn people into essentially the most arrogant flogs on this planet, but unfortunately they're probably going to act that way regardless because that is just a personality thing. To me personally, I want to get better at the game and know that I'm improving, so I would love to see my KD right now and be able to check back in say a month from now to see if I've gotten better. And I think it's also just a lot of fun to see like how many revives you have and what your win-loss ratio and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I know there are online stat trackers and I'll probably just use those if I have to, but I'd love there to be an official in-game stat screen either way. Now moving on, we have a rather controversial one, and this is the aim assist. Now I think the aim assist in this game really does need to get a slight buff personally. I don't need it to be a bloody aimbot or anything, but right now it does feel super weak to me personally, and I'll provide some context to back that up. In the early preview for 2042, we got 4 hours of Breakthrough and Conquest, and it was PC only, so everyone was a PC player, but obviously a lot of people were using controllers, myself included. Now I'm a controller player my whole life. I've been playing shooters and specifically Battlefield for over 10 years now, pretty much every single day of my life, so I think I can handle myself pretty well on a controller. That's what I use and it's definitely what I'm best at. Halfway through the session though, I actually decided that the aim assist was so weak that I switched to keyboard and mouse, and keep in mind I do not play keyboard and mouse more than maybe once every 6 months, and for the rest of the session I reckon I held close to a 3.5 KD playing against content creators who are also very good at the game, so it wasn't like these were lobbies full of bad players. I'm a controller player and I did about twice as good on keyboard and mouse despite not even being used to it, and that should not happen at all, and to me that just backs up the fact that the aim assist needs improving. Again, not a drastic amount. If it gets too much of a buff it'll be OP and I don't want that at all, but yeah, right now it just feels genuinely non-existent, and I hope they do improve that sooner rather than later because a lot of less experienced players are actually struggling to hit a target, and understandably so. Moving on, we have a pretty simple one, and this is that I'd love them to add the ability to actually copy loadouts and paste them in a new slot, as well as reordering the loadouts too. The new loadout builder is an awesome addition in my opinion, but it does feel rather bare bones at the moment, and in my opinion all it needs is those two options, mainly just the reorder option, to be a really solid implementation. Obviously your top loadout should be the one that you use most since that is the first one in the list, but let's just say I make one down the bottom and after using it for a week I realize this is my new favorite loadout. I should be able to essentially drag and drop that to the top of the list so that it is much faster to access in the spawn screen. It's a pretty small and simple change, but I do think it would do a world of good if they changed it. Now piggybacking off that last one, I'd also love to be able to actually save individual weapon loadouts too, as in saving a preset weapon and having the option to choose between multiple. How it currently works, if I customize my PBX45 in my first class and then, you know, later on I make a new class that's using the PBX45 as well but with different gadgets for example, well, it uses the same weapon loadout as the other class. I understand that because of the plus system you have 12 attachments per weapon, so it's not as big of a deal as it seems, but I'd love to be able to save multiple attachment loadouts per weapon. For example, I can set up the PBX45 for super close range gunfights and save that as say PBX close, and then I can also save another weapon preset called PBX long, which is set up for long range gunfights. Obviously I wouldn't bother using a PBX for long range, but you get the point. Right now, if I change my weapon in one loadout, it will change it in another loadout, which is good in a way for making sure that I always know what I have in my plus system, but I think having the option to save multiple loadouts per weapon would be a really nice quality of life change for the game. That is actually going to do it for this one though, guys. Obviously, there are many other things that need fixing too. I hear it's not all that well optimized on PC. I hear people are having server issues, but all of those things are no doubt being worked on already, and since I haven't really experienced them myself, I thought I'd just leave that stuff out for this video. That said, I am definitely very keen to hear what you guys think needs improving as well. Like I said, I'll be sending this through to the team at DICE, and so if you have anything you want mentioned as well, please do leave them down in the comments section, and hopefully that can help the team even more with feedback purposes. If you enjoyed the video, then be sure to leave a like down below, and if you are new, then consider subscribing to the channel with those notifications on. If you guys want to support the content that I make here on YouTube, then consider becoming a channel member. But with that being said, thank you all very much for watching. You guys have a great day, and I'll see you all out there on the battlefield.